Hello, my name is Madison Crumweedy, and I led a group meeting consisting of 8 women, not including myself, about struggling with mental illness while also being a mother. This meeting was held on September 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time at our local library's outdoor picnic area. This meeting was planned to last 1 hour and 15 minutes, but ultimately, because the group was having such a great time sharing and getting to know each other on a deeper level, we as a group decided to add an extra 15 minutes onto the end of the meeting. While usually this group is a book club that meets every other Wednesday, I asked to take over 1 week and lead it for a different reason. Although I did know most of the women in attendance, we only knew each other on a very surface level, and there were still a few women I had not met before at all. Furthermore, I was the sole leader and facilitator of the group, and thus I was able to design the meeting in the way that I wanted it. Therefore, I could conduct the nature of this group to be intimate and safe while helping to provide support for the mothers struggling with mental illness while raising a young child. Next, I will talk about the group's dynamics, content, and process. The group meeting from beginning to end was truly satisfying. I started the group by explaining its nature and how I would like all of the women to conduct themselves, and I reminded them that confidentiality is vital for everyone to feel safe. Then I moved on to a round exercise in which I asked the women to go around and state their name in addition to stating something they most recently struggled with. As the leader of the group, I started by using self-disclosure and modeling so that the women would feel more comfortable than they would have had I not revealed my own vulnerable recent struggles. Furthermore, by starting the round exercise myself, I was able to set the tone that I wanted to have for the rest of the meeting. Once we were finished with the round exercise, I attempted to link 2 of the women's struggles together to get us moving toward the right direction. In order to move toward the middle or working phase, according to Jacob et al. 2016, 2 of the women mentioned that a family member seemed unsupportive about their mental health journey, and so I tried to link those 2 together in order to start a discussion. They stated that sometimes family, despite their best intentions, can be toxic to our path towards mental health stability. I then asked the women if they wanted to talk more about that or if they had any advice on what to do when a family member is not on the same page as yourself. This seemed to strike a chord with many members because I picked up on a lot of nonverbal cues that suggested they agreed and had also experienced such frustrations. As the conversation progressed, so did the energy of the group. The conversation seemed to progress, and I did my best to keep a positive tone and to keep everyone on topic. As we neared the end of the meeting, I realized I only had a few minutes left to close. However, I also realized that the group did not seem to want the meeting to end, so I asked for a consensus and on adding 15 more minutes, and there was a unanimous agreement. With only 5 minutes left, I started the closing phase of the meeting. I asked each member to state something they were going to do for self-care sometime during the next 2 weeks. The women seemed to struggle finding an answer, so I started them by saying I would find time to shower and make some crafts on my Cricut machine. Once every member had stated their intent to self-care, I closed the meeting and dismissed us all. Next, I will discuss my self-assessment. While overall I think the meeting went quite well, there was definitely some room for improvement. Jacobs et al. 2016 states that the leader should not respond to every member after he or she says something. However, during the meeting, I did feel the need to respond to each comment in person, and ultimately it set a bad pattern and sometimes seemed to restrict the normal flow of conversation. Additionally, while the women eventually opened up, the start was much slower than I had expected or planned it to be. For example, even though I went first in sharing my most recent stressor at the beginning of the meeting, the first few women were reluctant to get into a deep level of discussion. I was hoping my example would be a segue for other moms to share something mental illness related. However, this was not the case. For instance, one of the women's recent struggles that she shared was that her place of work ran out of coffee one day, so she was left feeling tired. While I understand she did not want to be vulnerable right at the beginning, and I understand why, that's not what I was hoping for. Lastly, I did not allow for enough time for gathering closing information. Even though we added unanimously another 15 minutes onto the meeting, I still seemed rushed and felt rushed when trying to close and dismiss us all. I definitely need to start closing the meeting sooner next time. However, on the flip side, there were certainly things that I did well. I felt as if I picked up on nonverbal cues quite efficiently. For example, when one mom stated that they had been struggling with intrusive thoughts about something bad that had happened to their child, I noticed two other moms shake their head in agreement, while one mom opened her eyes wide and was visibly shaken by the thoughts. Furthermore, I played on these nonverbal cues quite well. By this, I mean that I was able to link the two women who agreed together, and oppositely, I asked the woman who was shocked if she had ever experienced such a thing or if this was new to her. Now I will conclude this presentation and summarize the highlights. Overall, leading the meeting seemed to feel very natural, and that was pleasantly surprising. It solidified the fact that I have a heart for those who struggle with mental illness, and that motherhood is quite tough without the support of others. Also, leading the group helped me to realize that I don't need to have an opinion or comment about every little thing, because if I don't, then someone else will, and ultimately that tends towards the natural flow of conversation better. Finally, the biggest takeaway for me is that God has given me a gift in that I feel comfortable in a leading position. And for that reason alone, I will be praying that He guides my heart to the right leadership positions and that I follow His path for my life. Leading others is not something to be taken lightly. 1 Timothy 4:12 says, "Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity."